Welcome back to the Think Freight podcast, and thanks for joining us today. I've got Rich Krul. He's the co-founder and CEO of Hoplite Logistics. Rich, thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Thomas. Excited to get on here. I know we've been connected on LinkedIn for a while, but I don't think we've actually been able to chat. So looking forward to it.
I know this is really like our first conversation. So for like the people who don't know, sometimes these conversations happen between people I know really well. And sometimes like with Rich, where we've been connected, we've liked each other's posts and content for a long time, but we've never really sat down and had a convo. So, Rich, I really want to like let the listeners, but also myself kind of know, like, you're now the co-founder and a CEO, but you've not always had those titles, right? Like I want to rewind or like pull back the onion for a minute and kind of find out like who you were before freight and who you like were before starting your own company and kind of what led to that moment of like, I don't want to be, an employee, or I don't want to be, in the corporate ring anymore. I want to go out and start my own thing. So what were you doing and kind of what, experiences helped lead you to where you are today?
Yeah, grew up in Michigan. Noticed some of the beautiful helmets and colors behind me. But no, I went to Central Michigan in college, though, fire up. I was kind of backed my way into freight like most people do in this industry.
Yeah.
I was advertising and marketing major or double major. The double major ended up adding was logistics management because at Central you could do it for 4 extra courses. And I started
Okay.
figuring out that, okay, like marketing and advertising, you don't really make any money. And I was pro money and was like, okay, there seems to be some more opportunity with this logistics piece. Got into the courses and did really well in them. Ended up joining like an honor society at Central for logistics and got to go visit some facilities like Bayer and Whirlpool. And just that's really what I gravitated towards. So after college, I moved out to Los Angeles to work for this company, Crane Worldwide, which their headquarters is actually in Houston. So you may know them down there. But, I was there for 3 years, did some import and export for them, ultimately got into outside sales, which was pretty cool. Like their owner, Jim Crane, bought the Houston Astros while I was working for them. So got to go down and do the sales conference in Minute Maid Park. But yeah, me personally, before freight, get into my background a little bit, but just very sports oriented, like competitive person. Didn't really expect to get into like sales or freight itself. I always kind of thought I'd gravitate towards something in sports. But then ultimately when I got into the industry and kind of got into like the leadership roles, I kind of view that as like a coaching piece. And
Absolutely.
there's just a lot of twists and turns. I feel like specifically in our industry, people come from so many different backgrounds. And once I got in, I enjoyed it. I really like the people in our industry. I think we're all wired like a certain way. That's why the conferences are always fun. You meet good people. So I'm not going anywhere, man. Like I'm definitely stuck in this industry for the long haul.
Something I've noticed in being, I started my career at TQL, Rich. So, another big brokerage. I noticed kind of a similar trend with what you said was, there was a lot of people that I noticed that were past athletes, whether that be D1, D2, D3, or just continuing like loving golf, playing basketball intramurally, starting up leagues. A lot of people in this industry are just very sports, very goal, very, very driven. And I find that to be just very, I wouldn't say unique just to this industry, but it's interesting how many past athletes have gravitated towards logistics. And I think that's because it is so high paced. There are so many twists and turns, like you were saying, and there are so many different avenues. It just doesn't have to be being in brokerage or being on the shipper side. There's so many different angles you can take. I think that's really kind of unique for the industry. TMS.ai is the next generation transportation management system from Rose Rocket, one of the most awarded and respected logistics tech companies in North America. Unlike legacy TMS software, TMS.ai is AI native from day one. It's built to help enterprise logistics companies scale without hiring, streamline operations, and automate complex processes from dispatch to invoicing to pricing strategy. With a modular design, TMS.ai lets you build what you need now and add more when the market rebounds. No overcommitment, no bloated contracts, just speed, flexibility, and real ROI. Check out roserocket.com or tms.ai to get started. Looking for a freight specific CRM? Sales CRM is built exclusively for freight brokers and freight agents. Manage shipper sales prospecting, track your carriers, and monitor the lanes they run, all in one powerful platform, and all for one extremely affordable price. Try Sales Dash free for 14 days with no credit card required. Visit sales-crm.com today.
Yeah, I mean, I think our industry's had more of a spotlight on it over the last decade than it previously had. I mean, you see,
Yeah.
it seemed logistics had this thing where it was like really salt of the earth. Maybe not viewed the same lens as like finance or anything. Then the
Right.
companies that started embracing it and prioritizing it were like, well, there's bottom line savings to be had here if you're very efficient and you have the right supply chain in place. So there's been an emphasis on that, and not just from a hiring standpoint, but from like technology and Silicon Valley, like there's a lot of startups now in the industry that, you just see the added efficiencies. So I'm not surprised that there's been a gravitational pull, I guess, the hiring and how people are prioritizing logistics now. Um, and ultimately, I think too, there is still that piece of like grit within our industry that I think like an athlete or someone who's really competitive, you're going to get out of it what you put in.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fun thing. Like I know if you work really hard, you can do really well in this industry, and people kind of, they find their way to it. Like I said, eventually when you get into it and you're like, oh, I can make like really good money if we're just really working my ass off.
Yep.
There's a lot of opportunity that in logistics. So once you're in, typically, people gravitate, maybe they leave brokerage and get into like SaaS or that's a different type of grind in itself, but they don't typically stray too far from the industry itself.
What sports did you play?
In high school, football was my sport. I was a 4-year captain there. Went to Flushing High School outside of Flint. We joke
Were
because
you
like
did
oh
you
sorry,
play were you on the defensive side?
I was on both sides, but
Okay.
defense was like I was corner. I was first team all conference to shout myself out.
You seem like a defensive guy. Like you just seem like you want to go after it and like just stuff the other team's best player. Like I don't know why, just you give off that vibe.
That's the best compliment I've gotten in a while. No, it's just we were not a small school. Like we were in one of the higher divisions, but small for our division. So
Yeah.
our graduating class was like 320, and we had a good year. Still, actually, like 3 days ago, I was at our football golf outing for the next generation. So it's really cool to
That's
go
cool.
back and like be able to like sponsor that and see people I haven't seen in a long time. And yeah, just very cool to get back to your hometown.
No, absolutely. I want to dive more into kind of your beginnings of your logistics career because I think that's kind of fun. So you kicked off at Crane Worldwide. How long were you there for? How did you get there? You said you moved out to LA. Like what was like the like were you just looking for any kind of job or like were you I know you major or minored in logistics and things, but were you actively seeking out this position or was it something that you were just like, damn, I really kind of need some money right now. Let me go into brokerage.
Yeah, well, they were more of a forwarder, so I started my career in like a different capacity for sure. But
Yeah.
it's funny, man. I always like I had this pull to travel. Like I love to go visit different places. Like traveling is something that fills my cup up. But I interned at Ford Motor and got a job offer there, leaving college, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's probably not even true, man, because Ford has so many other opportunities too. But at the time, I was like, if I take this job, I'm probably never leaving Michigan, and I'll get married, and that's that,
That'll
and
be
that's
it.
fine. That's fine. But like for me, I was like, I went to college an hour away from home. I've had this pull to like get out and like find out who I am. So I kind of started looking like, no matter what it takes, I'm going to find a job in California. I always wanted to just move across the country. Um, and it was funny, man. Like I got this job offer from a printing graphics company, like to help out in their supply chain, and it paid like nothing. It was outside of Pasadena, but I had that offer in my pocket. I was like, okay, well now I can get out there. So I went into this job interview with Crane Worldwide and sat down, and I'm just feeling really like relaxed because I'm like, well, I already got a job offer in my pocket. Like I'm not so stressed anymore. Had the
Yeah.
best interview like I ever had. Got a job offer from them, but it was for Chicago. And obviously, I'll get to my path. I was in Chicago for a long time. It's been home. But I was like, I don't really want to go to Chicago. It's not far enough away, which is funny to
Mm,
think now. But So I told them, I was like, yeah, I'm looking more for Los Angeles actually. And they're like, well, we have an office out there, and they're looking to hire too. Like, would you want to go out and visit it? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So flew out there, got the job offer, and like the rest was kind of history, man. It's just funny how things work out. I was with Crane for 3 years. Said I did like imports and exports for 2 of those years, like an operations supervisor type role. Helped like figure out how to like, they put up warehousing. We had pick and pack. We didn't have a bonded warehouse, but like learning how to move international freight was eye opening. Very different from the freight brokerage world. So
Yeah.
like having that background was really cool because I still use that regularly today. And then 2 years in, the way to move up, they're like, we think you'd be really good in an outside sales role. Like you'd be one of the younger ones we've had at the company ever, but do you want to try your hand on it? And I was like, at the time, like, yeah, wait, like I'm in the office 1 hour a week and I'm just on the road the rest of the time, like making my own schedule. Like, yeah, let's do that. And I didn't realize what I was signing up for back then. I was 23 years old, following trucks around. They would pull into the back of the warehouse. I'd pull in the front, walk in and basically solicit, trying to get, a hold of whoever's making decisions out there and just rinse and repeat that for like 15 or 20 times a morning. And then I would be told 15 to 20 times no, sometimes get a card and then just take a break. And it was a grind, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got into outside sales there and, yeah, I ended up moving back to Chicago shortly after. I was there for 3 years looking for sales leads and came across this like bright logo and cool looking office in Chicago called Coyote Logistics. And I was like, man, wait, like freight looks like this. This is a little different from like nothing against Crane. It was just more of an old school culture.
Yeah. Very different.
Very different. So I was like, well, I'm kind of 3 years out there getting a little homesick. I'm not getting home to see my family as often. I'm missing like weddings and things like that.
Yep.
Maybe Chicago is looking a little better now. And I went back to interview Coyote in person, like loved Chicago at this point in like my life path. And I was like, man, I would be awesome to live here. Got the job offer, put my 2 weeks in at Crane, drove across the country and was living there 2 weeks later, getting ready to start. So life moves fast, man. You never know.
Dude, it does. But that sounded like, I mean, kind of like where you transitioned. It sounded like you went from, damn, I got to get out of my hometown to like really kind of missing your hometown. Like it sounded like you really just wanted to kind of at least be back in the Midwest to where you could say, hey, Chicago's only in the worst case 2.5 hours or at the best case 2.5 hours, at the worst case 3.5 hours with Chicago traffic trying to get out of 94 or 90. But yeah, I mean, it sounded like you made was it like, what were you doing with Coyote? What was that move like? Was it going to be kind of similar, or were you making kind of like a move up to be with Coyote?
They only had 2 classes that they brought in people that had industry experience, and I think we were either the first or the second, man. So it was pretty
Wow.
cool. Like, I took a pay cut from Crane to go back to Coyote, but I did that doing my research, being like, if I do what I know how to do, which is like I work hard, man. So you bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Have you ever really failed? Not if you don't give up, right? So like I'll go back and get into a sales role and I'll do fine. I saw that their average commissions were like 2,500 a month, and I'm like, okay, well, I get up and running. I can do more than that. So I went back and moved into a carrier sales role, and coming from the customer sales, or I was a pure hunter out there. I mean, I was on the road face
Yep.
to face. And I did decent for my year in sales in Crane. Like I had they told me they were happy with my progress at the time. When you're getting told no all day, it can be like a soul crusher. But I landed some accounts, and at that stage, like looking back, I'm like, man, actually, I did pretty good. But I wasn't like making the type of money that I wanted to. And then when I went back to Coyote and saw carrier sales, like, man, like, wait, you get told yes a lot. It's more, it's a faster sale. It's a different cycle. You
Right.
can come in and make a few sales on your first day. And that was appealing to me after being told no, like nonstop for a year straight. And I was like, well, this is a nice little change up, different city, different role. I'm around a bunch of young people. I'm back in the Midwest where people care about college sports. I'd go out in LA and not see, the Lakers were the only thing anyone cared about. USC
Yep.
games, they had like an amazing dynasty going on at the time, and they wouldn't even sell out the Coliseum. I'm like, this just isn't I love sports, man. So it was cool to be back in Big Ten country. But yeah, I've moved into carrier sales and never really looked back. I got into leadership, then senior leadership, but was mostly in like the carrier sales side of things my whole 9 years at Coyote.
So I want to dive into. Well, first I want to. What years were you in LA? Because we have to dive into this USC dynasty. I think that's important. College football is very important to me, and I'm trying to. I was googling this as you were talking, so I want to see who was the quarterback in 2010, and it was um, Matt Barkley, right?
Yeah, so I got out there right after I think Leinart left. And
Mm,
I lived downtown LA for a little bit, and people were like, "Yeah, Leinart used to come to the pool here all the time," because I was like great in USC country when I was living down there for one of those years of the three. And but yeah, USC's campus was right down the street, and like people never talked about going to the games. And Pete Carroll had just left like around that time frame. He had moved, he went on to Seattle. But the funny story with that is when I moved out to Hermosa Beach, I was living in this little converted garage for like $800 a month. I mean, my mom, when she came out to visit me, wanted to cry. She said she couldn't picture like her son living across
living
the
there.
country. But I'm like, I was a block off the beach. I didn't care. I was never really home anyway. But it was like a Murphy bed in the wall, converted garage, like tiniest little, like I'm talking about like a 300 square foot apartment. But Pete Carroll's house was across the street.
Oh, that's awesome.
And as like a Michigan fan, I hated Pete Carroll because USC
Yeah, for sure.
us. But there was a couple times I like parked on the street, and one of the times he was in his garage, and I was walking by, and he saw me parked and was just like, "Hey, how you doing?" And immediately it was like, "Man, Pete Carroll, nice guy," like
Yeah.
won me over with 4 words. But yeah, he had just left, so the dynasty was coming to an end, but it was still crazy to me that like no one really cared about.
Yeah, I find that so interesting that like different areas of the country have like the sports that they really care about and things that they don't care about, right? Like the Midwest, super big into college sports. Same thing in the South. I mean, high school football and then anything college sports, it's just massive. But like I've heard that same thing like on the like anywhere you get kind of further west, it's just like they really don't care so much about college sports. It's more kind of whatever team is doing well at the time. So like Golden State right now, LA, like those teams, they just kind of just shine when things are going well, but no one really cares about the college side,
Yeah, I
which
honestly
which I
don't.
think sucks.
It does, but I don't know why either. Because you'd say, well, maybe they don't have the same history. Like, no, USC is like a blue blood program. The Lakers have come from a history of winning, but when they're not doing great, the town's not as into it as much. You could say that for most, but I do think maybe it's just they have more to do. They
Yeah,
don't have the seasons as much. Like you can get
that's
out.
true.
I don't know. Like I know I live and die. Like the Lions are finally good, and like man, I can't wait for the NFL season to start. So
As a Bears fan, and I want to go back to Pete Carroll a second. As a Bears fan who has watched the Lions be so terrible for so long, and equally the Bears being not any better. I'm so thrilled. Like I was cheering every year that like the last 2 years, I've been cheering so hard for the Lions to go to the Super Bowl. I've been like, you know what? I can't even hate the Lions as a Bears fan. Like I can just watch like how bad they've been and say, you know what, they deserve to have. They deserve this. Like the Lions deserve this. I'm super excited. But I want to touch on Pete Carroll real quick because I have a similar experience. He won me over because as a Notre Dame fan, watching him kick our ass relentlessly for years and years, especially those Reggie Bush years and Matt Weiner with that Bush push just absolutely crushed my soul. But you know what's really funny is that year, the Weiner Bush push year, I think it was 2008 or 2009. So they stayed at a hotel 2 miles from my house when they would go to Notre Dame, and I actually ran into Pete Carroll at the McDonald's next door, and I said something kind of snarky to him, and he said something really nice to me, and he was just like, Notre Dame's going to have a great season. We may beat them, but they're going to have a great season. He was just really nice. Like I was like 10 years old and made like a really snarky comment. He was really kind and nice, and I was just like, this guy's kind of cool. And ever since then, like, even though they kicked our butt that year, I was just like, you know what? I always had like a massive respect for Pete Carroll and was really happy to see him have success in Seattle. I want to dive back in because I peeped your LinkedIn a little bit. You spent 9 years at Coyote, which is obviously now RXO. So
Mhm.
what was kind of that ride like? Like, 9 years going through that brokerage as they were massively scaling. Like, what was that ride like? Like, how did you grow throughout that company, and how did that kind of, I guess, push you to your next experience and then ultimately to where you are today?
Yeah, man. I mean, said it a few times. There's been a lot of like waxing poetic on Coyote on social media because it's over. It's like a really
Yeah.
not seeing the logo off the highway anymore in Chicago is just like a weird, jarring thing. Because it was such a presence for so long, and it was
It
really like
was.
great education for a lot of people. The alumni is what I think is ultimately going to be the legacy of that, because you have so many people that have come out of there like, we're just getting started at Hoplite. We're pretty small for the time being. I'm confident where we're going, but there are some like massive companies that have come out of that tree, and
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive. I mean, I look at where I started. I got into carrier sales and did pretty well there. Built a nice book of business, and um, you learn just things that I didn't realize weren't normal in our industry. Is like,
Yeah.
you just don't fail. Like if you have to take a huge loss on it for the customer, you do it. You don't give it back. Like little things
Yep.
like that were very formative. And I have to give Jeff and Marianne so much credit. I got there and the company had been around for a bit, and I felt like I was part of pushing it forward. I felt like, C.H. Robinson was the enemy, and like we had a target on that. Like, go get them. They're the industry leader. Like that's who we're targeting. Um, like we felt like we were pushing things forward at the scale of $1 billion company. Like that's really tough to
Yeah.
do from a culture standpoint. I've seen culture erode. And usually it's because a company gets really large and it's tough to keep a culture there and keep people bought in when there's so many personalities and things to manage. I started off when I was in carrier sales, and, I was very motivated, wanted to make a name for myself. Thought I did a decent job of that, but, that coaching part of my brain just never went away. And I started to see an
Right.
opportunity. Like I was on the West Coast team, and there wasn't really another person stepping up beneath our manager, to kind of lead the way. I was like, well, I want to get into management. So kind of started taking that on before it was a role. And when the time came, it was kind of natural that I stepped up into it, which was cool. I was excited to get started in that, excited to get into like my first actual management role. But I was probably a little fiery, man. I look back and like, if people knew me at that stage in my career, I was learning how to manage on the
Yeah.
go. And so, you make mistakes, you learn from them. I look back and, again, you know, there's a lot you can't control in freight, and that can do something to your personality. It can do something to,
Absolutely.
being frustrated, and it's not necessarily the person's fault or the driver's fault or the truck breaks down. Um, so I had to learn to really, the biggest lesson out of that part of my career was like, just control what you can control. Like
Yeah.
control your attitude, you can control your reaction, and you can control like trying to cross off everything and put yourself in the best position. But things are going to happen. Sometimes really bad things over and over. You have like that day where every phone call is like, man, what else can happen today?
Yeah.
So yeah, ended up getting into a senior management role after a few years in that, and they kind of retooled at Coyote, and they created like these mega conferences. And so, I was overseeing like indirectly, but directly, I had like 8 managers under me and about 240, 250 reps. And
Wow.
that spanned from like Chicago to Denver to Portland down to San Diego. And it was a lot of moving
Wow.
parts. And yeah, so we did really well at that time. And I started to feel like, okay, like if I can oversee and keep the team really engaged at this type of scale, like that gave me a lot of confidence to maybe move on in my career. And um, COVID hit. I
Yep.
had been kind of hit my ceiling, I think, at Coyote at that point. Like I was there in that role for 4.5 years and kept kind of being told like, director's next for you, and then things just wouldn't work out. And it's like, okay, well,
Right.
there's other opportunities out there. Time to actually see if you're more than like this playbook that works, or is it the player? And so you kind of have to again bet on yourself. And I got an offer to leave to go to Traffic Tech in Chicago,
Okay.
um, and kind of build out their carrier sales program. And I was like, yeah, man, this is kind of what I was looking for. So I had moved out to Denver at the time because nothing was open in Chicago, and was just like, well, I'll get out to to Colorado and at least can get in the mountains during all this, COVID stuff. And moved right back to Chicago and got started. Was in the office 5 days a week, and that was a big change again. But
Yeah.
uh, what we were able to do in like a little over a year and a half, almost 2 years there, I was really proud of. But the market bottomed out and things changed, and yeah, kind of long-winded story, kind of differing off of Coyote, but like every stop along my career had given me a little more confidence to take the next step, learn some things about not people but structure too, and it's just funny how your career plays out, man. Like if you'd have told me 10 years ago what I've been starting a venture, I probably didn't have that thought in my head yet, but every little thing you do starts to unlock new things that you have a craving for, or new confidence, and you just learn a lot. So it's been a fun journey for me. I've been in a lot of different roles and a lot of exposure to a lot of different things.
I wanna ask. So something you said really resonated with me, and I think it will resonate with a lot of young leaders who are maybe struggling, or not even maybe struggling, but managing your team on the fly. Like you said, like you're learning to now become not just a hunter, but you're now trying to lead the pack of hunters. And what is kind of like that, like you said, you can learn on the fly, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. What are maybe some of those lessons that you learned, or even like, is there like a moment that you really remember that like still sticks with you today, that maybe you cringe at, or you're like, damn, this was one of those moments where maybe some of the biggest learning came to you from kind of learning on the fly or managing your team on the fly came from?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is like not everyone is wired the same. So like if you
Yeah.
do a one size fits all approach, you're not gonna reach every person. So you really have to
Right.
figure out what makes every person tick, and then try to play to that. I just didn't have a lot of emotional intelligence back then, and now I look at that as a
Yeah.
strength of mine. I get the feedback a decent amount. Like people that are at Hoplite are all people that I've had uh, experience with in the past, and they've left better paying jobs to come do this, and I'm really
That
proud of
says a
that.
lot.
And yeah, it's flattering that they believe in myself and Brian, my co-founder, and um, that they like the leadership style, they believe in it, and yeah, I just I think I was more of like an iron fist when I started. Like we I would be, as a rep, I'd get frustrated when I look around lunch and no one really planned that like we're all leaving at the same time. So the phones are just going crazy. So when I
Yep.
got in the management role, I was like, you guys are going to check in and check out before lunch. And if we don't have enough people here, then you're not leaving. You got to wait
Yep.
till someone comes back. And that's a basic thing, but there was a lot better way to go about it. You could
Absolutely.
have just had a
Yeah.
conversation and be like, look, guys, like, we're losing a tons of money, and there's a lot of service issues going on when everyone leaves at the same time. Like, just don't do that. So you just I had to learn that. And I think the big thing that hit me was one rep that when he was a rep, me and him had a good relationship, but he ended up quitting. And in his exit interview, he mentioned that like, I don't like the way I was being managed. Like, and I was mentioned directly. And I was like, man,
That's tough.
I took it personally. I was kind of like pissed at the time, like, but then I started kind of looking at myself. I'm like, yeah, what he's saying is not wrong. Like, you kind of need to retool here, man. You're not reaching everyone. And the longer I think you do that, the longer you're around people, and you start to get through to certain people every now and then, you realize like, okay, this is how you approach it. And so I got better at it. I mean, I think for any young manager, you're going to figure out what works for you, but you're not going
Yeah.
to be good at it from day one. Like, it takes some time.
So you were there. You were at Coyote for obviously about 9 years. You then went on to Traffic Tech. Now, obviously, you said you had kind of bottomed out, or kind of topped out at Coyote. It didn't feel like you had really much more to move. Like you said, the director role kind of kept being dangled, and then would kind of be pulled away. It just kind of didn't seem like the timing was there, or goalposts would shift because market changes or whatever it may be. So you ultimately just decided, hey, there's other roles, other companies, and decided to make the leap to Traffic Tech. I've heard pretty good things about Traffic Tech. So walk me through, like, what was that role? You were, I think I saw on LinkedIn, vice president of carrier sales potentially. What was that shift like, going from like being a massive player at Coyote to being the VP at like a much smaller but growing company?
Yeah, well, they had such a global presence. They were a
Yeah,
big company, but just like not in freight brokerage. And I think their owner wanted to compete with the big boys in freight brokerage, and he, to his
yeah,
credit, went out and got some really talented people. But it was definitely different, man. I hadn't had a new job in like 9 years, so
right.
I walked in my first day, and it's in this really nice office off of Michigan Avenue. It's like overlooking the river, and I'm just
And you
sitting
said you
there.
were there 5 days a week, right, in office
Yep.
after being like remote and being in the mountains all the time in Denver from that perspective.
Yeah, it was
Big
an
change.
adjustment personality wise. I mean, I think I lost the ability to have a conversation or make small talk, like being
Yeah,
in the COVID atmosphere for so long. We're talking like a year and a half, not really needing to have that skill or use that muscle. And so I got in the office and felt like a little awkward at first. So like, man, this used to be such a strength of mine, and I'm just like struggling to connect right out of the gate. But no, it was weird. The first thing I did when I got in there was like, if I come in, they already have a team put together, and I know the feeling of being hired over. So like,
right.
they had some talented managers, and they brought me in to oversee them. The first thing I needed to do was get their buy-in. Like,
Yeah,
absolutely needed them to feel like I gave a shit about them, their career, their progression, to know that like, hey, this isn't me coming in being like, this is how we do stuff.
right.
I like, for the first like month or so, I just was on the emails, and like if I saw them interact a certain type of way that I was like, I might have approached that differently. That's what I did. I walked over to the side. I was like, hey man, like just a little feedback. Like I probably would have worded it this way or approached it this way. Just something to think about for next time. And it went
Yeah,
over really well. I think everyone appreciated that. No one was getting called out. Everyone was getting like, positive reinforcement. And our team got really close. I still talk to those guys. Like we had a great team. We were hiring really fast. On the other side of the business, they were bringing in good sellers, and so the accounts were growing. It was a weird structure at the time where they were more of like a pod structure, like cradle to grave. And if you wanted them to use carrier sales, you kind of needed to convince these sellers that, well, if you use us instead, you can spend more time selling.
yep,
And so that was like, it was an internal sales job. I was flying around the country trying to talk to these sellers and get them to use us. But then also, they finally said, okay, yeah, I'll use you guys. We needed to execute on it. So at the same time, you're trying to build an infrastructure and make sure the reps care, and that, kind of build that like Coyote model, where there's like oversight on everything, and you're not failing on a bunch of freight, because every day was like a new first chance at another seller that would open up more freight to the floor.
yeah,
And if you failed on it, they weren't going to want to use you again. So it was a super unique opportunity. It was really fun before the market completely turned. And like, we had an awesome team, man. It was really cool. But I learned a lot in that too, because I felt like that was like the next step where I didn't have a lot of guidance. It was more of like, this is what we want things to look like go. And they gave me support, but I was just kind of like figuring stuff out all day, man.
yeah,
And like the people aspect too, I definitely had to like be more political and be more level headed. And because like the friction between the two teams of sellers and carrier sales at the time was kind of high. They weren't used to that. So
yeah, for
eventually,
sure.
yeah, I think we eventually got everyone into a good place. And but it was a challenge. It was a fun challenge. It was definitely different than anything I'd done.
I think what's interesting is how you kind of approach that first month and not just walking in and saying, "Hey, this we're going to change everything, and this is what we're going to do," and blah blah blah. I think it's cool that you went in and just kind of like observed and like took note of like, "Hey, what this is what's going on now," and reinforcing like, "Hey, okay, we can continue to do things, maybe this way or that way, but maybe we just tweak." You just kind of went in and retooled minor things and reinforced kind of what they were doing, and not just iron fisting and saying, "Hey, we're going to change everything because this is how I know how to do it." You just kind of went in and said, "Hey, this is what they're doing. How can we improve these processes to not change everything, but just improve, and then take that improvement and continue to improve and change things kind of that way, but also process expansion and things like that." Is that kind of what you did? Is kind of what I took from what you said.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't think I could get really anything done without buy-in, because you can't do it yourself. I mean, you got to have everyone
100%.
on the same way. So once I felt like I had a good rapport with everyone, it was like, okay, let's start tweaking some things, and still asking for feedback. Like,
Definitely.
Coyote had a good way of doing things, but the fun thing was like we didn't have to do it that way. If I thought something else was a better way of doing it, then or someone brought an idea to me that I'm like, that's a really good idea. Like, let's try that. We could try it. And so I think that sort of atmosphere is actually what started to get me interested in like the entrepreneurship route of like, I finally didn't have anyone really beating down my neck on you need to do it a certain way, and I thrived. I loved it.
Yeah.
Um, Market turned and things changed a little, like any business. A lot of companies at the time were you have to be to survive, right? Like bottom line focus. Like we have to make some changes if we're going to weather this market. And everyone at the time was letting people go, and the headcount decreased the first few months of 2023, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't the same anymore. And I was like, had that itch going for then. I was like, you know what? If I was ever going to make a move and try something on my own, now would really be the time. I wasn't married. I wasn't even dating anyone. It was had me and my pup at the time, and it's like I think I know enough. I finally feel like I'm ready. Um, like maybe we start looking at taking a leap. And so, I give that experience a lot of credit for giving me the confidence to say I think I could build a company. I probably never would have had that confidence had it not been for that experience because it was very entrepreneurial, but had resources, and that was super
Yeah.
unique.
Well, yeah, you had to go out there. I mean, kind of like what you said, you didn't really have like a guidebook, a playbook, anything you could go off of. You were going out there every day and just figuring it out and figuring out, okay, this is going to be what we're going to do. And yeah, when you're doing that, especially when you can do that without having like the, oh shit, like we don't have any money to do this, but you've got the backing of it, and you can say, okay, we can implement all these things, and then you can see, okay, this really worked. Yeah, you can definitely decide, hey, especially when you're seeing a reduced headcount, you're seeing things change, you're seeing the market shifts, you're things happen. You're like, man, maybe I can go out and do this myself and become a better version of what we're doing here, and find my own people, and do things exactly the way I want to. And it sounds like that's exactly just kind of what pushed you. It's just like, I'm just going to go do it myself because this really empowered me. So you made that move. Hoplite Logistics is formed. When did you start the company? How did the awesome name come to be?
That's proud of the marketing for sure. I wanted something strong, and I definitely took it out of like the Coyote playbook, where I was like, ultimately, for the scale we want to get to, like I want it to be a one name company.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be like ABC Trucking. Nothing against that, but it doesn't stand out. And so I started looking at like different names for warriors or things like that. So I was like, I want it to be like strength, but I had an idea of
Yeah.
what I wanted like the ethos of the company to be. And I came across Hoplite, and I'll be honest, man, like I'm not a Greek mythology,
It's badass.
I didn't realize
Ancient
I'd
Greece.
never even heard of that. And so I was like, man, it kind of has like a transportation connotation to it. It sounds like a piece of equipment, like a hoplite, like it almost like,
Right, it does.
and I'm like, okay, the story behind this, they're basically the soldiers from the movie 300, where, they're smaller, but they defeat larger armies because they really care like about each other. They have better strategy. And I was like, man, like for what I wanted the company to be and still hope it can become, it's like you can take on a larger company with less people because maybe you have more efficiencies, and
Yeah.
you're smarter, and you have a great culture, so people care. And it just fit exactly everything we're trying to do. And then, there's so many branding and like marketing opportunities with that sort of name. It's like, okay, so we get the spear in there. We can create like a real simplistic but bold logo. And yeah, I'm happy with how it came together, man. I really do think it's like I get a lot of compliments on our branding and the marketing piece, and we don't have a marketing department, so it's a good compliment to have.
Well, it's a good thing you went to college for marketing, huh?
Yeah, I get to play in that creative sandbox again. But I can't say I'm like a sitting around as a graphic design major by any means like that. I think I'm just OCD when it comes to like aesthetics. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel right until it looks a certain clean way. And um, but hopefully we can hire someone who's a lot better than me at this stuff down the line for the design. But for the time being, like I'm happy with the image the company has.
Yeah, I mean you're crushing it so far. I mean, I knew I had an idea, like I was hoping that that's like where it came from because that's like where I knew the hoplite term or like meaning to come from, and I was like, I hope this is where it's going to go because that's really cool. No, I think that that's such a unique like yeah, like you went about it cool way, like you and Brian. So like let's dive into this. You and Brian, how do you guys know each other? Like where does that intersect?
Yeah, he would be a great person to have on too, man. Like such a, I have like the best founder, man. I couldn't do this without him. He like balances me out, and he's just awesome. But we had a lot of similarities that we kind of found. So he was at Coyote the entire time I was there. Didn't really know him well. I knew his name, but we didn't interact
Yeah,
that much. He was on the customer side, and then he actually helped them uh, like set up the Mexico team there. Like he was under Matt Silver, but like
yeah,
flew down, helped them open the Guadalajara office, and helped some of the UPS Southern Border Solutions integration. And so, when he got into Mexico, that's been taking off on our industry for a while now. But he was at the forefront of that when Coyote really wanted to invest into it. That's kind of when nearshoring really started taking off. The timing.
yeah,
So I didn't know him then, but he ended up coming to Traffic Tech and helped grow out their Mexico division. And I got to know him more there because I actually came into Traffic Tech as a director, and I did pretty well the first year. They were happy with the growth. And I got it promoted. I got promoted to vice president, and with that promotion came more responsibility. I was overseeing drayage and intermodal and Mexico and some of the Canada cross border stuff. So Brian came in as director of Mexico, and me and him hit it off right away. And like just random stuff too. Like our families were both on Higgins Lake, like growing up. His dad and my dad like went like to the same area of Flint high schools at the same time.
oh
His
wow,
cousin played in the NFL for like 9 years, and I played in my junior year, and he definitely trucked me. I got up and my shoulder pads were sideways, but everyone knew his cousin at the time, and it's just funny, like all these little coincidences. And then we saw things very similarly. So when I started thinking about this and got serious about it, the Mexico angle was large, but I also knew that like I know we'll see eye to eye on how we want to run a business, and
yeah,
so getting close with him and reconnecting with our time at Traffic Tech when the time came, it was I was excited because he was interested, but he also just had twin baby girls, and so I was like, well, that's going to be a tough
that's tough.
sell. But I knew like it wasn't so much him because he was really interested in it. He had that like itch too, but it was more of like, can I convince his wife Kelsey? And so I flew out to Minneapolis and stayed with them for a weekend and got her on board. And like kudos to her, she was super supportive and still has been. And so yeah, man, it's just funny how things work out, just like real random coincidences. How people can kind of be going along the same timeline, having similar experiences, and not know each other, and then meet and
Yeah.
I consider him like an extremely close friend now. So it's been a fun ride together.
When did you guys start the company? And then for all the audience who has never heard of you, never heard of Hoplite, how do you explain what you guys do and kind of the markets that you guys serve?
Yep. So we left Traffic Tech in late spring of 2023.
Okay.
So like May 2023, we started building, and we didn't want to just rush out because there was a lot from a business standpoint we had no idea how to do, and
Yeah.
so that was the toughest time. Like I liquidated my 401k, and for 8 months I didn't have an income, and I just said I'm
Wow.
working on this every day. We had a call every morning. We banged out emails and calls to investors off the angel list for 5 months. Heard no every single time. It was demoralizing. There's a certain type of no, hearing that like more than like a customer saying no, like someone saying no to
Right.
like something you believe in was like, man, soul crushing. But finally, had an investor come through who's been just absolutely amazing in supporting us. And so then we were like, okay, we're close enough to the end of the year now that we already had like our initial hires, people on board, and we're like, we'll just launch January 2024, like Jan 1. And so we launched, and now it's been a year and a half in. We did 4.5 million in revenue the first year. Really proud of that. And this
Hell
year
yeah.
we're pacing for like 14 or 15. So like really happy with the growth. We were really hoping 2025 was going to take off like everyone else, but it's got to come up at some point. So we're just trying to be responsible for the time being. But no, what Hoplite, our niche is cross border. With Brian's expertise and
Yeah.
background in that, we opened up a Mexico entity in Guadalajara. So we have two companies actually, but Hoplite is also based in Guadalajara. We have an office down there with three employees, boots on ground, and
It's just how
so
you have to do it for Mexico. You just have to have boots on the ground, honestly, right? That's what I've
yeah,
heard.
yeah, and like so for us, we because we have a good relationship with the Rapido guys too. Like shout out to
Shout out to
Danny.
Rapido, to Danny.
Those guys are awesome. And they were Roberto was super helpful when we were launching. Like we had dinner with him down in Guadalajara before we'd even launched, and he's just talking about like kind of the stuff they went through, and regardless of whether or not we partnered with them, because we were just
Yeah.
looking at like, well, if we don't, it's a no brainer. Like we trust them, we know them, and they built a good company. But do we want the control over our own employees? And it also said something too that like if our niche is Mexico, to not have our own company down there, I think I didn't like the optics of it.
Right.
You want to be invested in the community, and so we're like, let's just create the company and we'll hire direct. And so we did that, and we handle Canada well too. Like from a time at traffic check, I certainly know how to move Canada cross border. It's much less complex. We don't have anyone up there, but that's a little bit easier to handle from the states.
Yeah.
Um, and so, a lot of the freight we move right now is still domestic. Our larger customers are domestic customers as well, a food and bev focus early on. So we're really strong at that. But, it just gives me confidence. Like I've moved every type of freight under the sun in my career. And I don't mean to say that like boasting by any means, but like my time at Crane, I did international. I did
Right.
pallets, LTL, moving anything anywhere because they had presences all across the world. And then Coyote, I mean, we moved every type of freight you could possibly imagine. So I know, what from a security standpoint, when you need to kind of buckle down and make sure that you're following extra steps, if it's like electronics or something, or, with Mexico, Brian's expertise, like how to make sure that, the security aspect is covered up with that and vetting the right carriers the right way. And so we feel strong that we can play in this, USA, Mexico, Canada sandbox, just North America. We're focused on, full truck, partials, do some LTL, a little bit of drayage, but not a ton. We don't mess with intermodal yet. And we're kind of focused on, just our core competencies at the moment.
Yeah, so it seems like you guys kind of backed into your niche, right? You guys decided, hey, we're going to go into cross border. That's going to be our main focus. And then with that concentration, you guys have landed probably a crap ton more of the full truckload, the LTL side, because they're saying, hey, if you're handling our cross border and it's coming into these facilities here and there, why don't you just take this full truckload that's also going from our now Arizona facility? It just sounds like you guys are just kind of ingrained yourself kind of backwards, right? You said, hey, we're going to take on this really difficult aspect, and that's kind of positioned yourself into getting a lot more of the quote unquote easier freight here in the US.
Yeah, I think it's way more common that we've had someone give us a Mexico opportunity and then we've gotten domestic from it than the vice versa. Like normally there's less people that handle Mexico the
Yeah.
right way. We're really competitive from a rate standpoint. I know no one can beat us from a service standpoint. Like, I'm just it's worked out for us. From like a tech standpoint, we don't have any of our own tech, but we're like highly tech forward. If you can name a partnership, we probably either have it or have been approaching it. And that's the big piece I'm feeling like strong about is there's never been a better time I mean, look at the company you're working for now. Like no one's
Yeah.
talked about like the digital permits or anything like that of saving people time and having to go through this manual process. That's a great
Exactly.
idea. And I
Yeah.
don't, we don't own any assets, but I can imagine your customers are pretty happy. So, we want to leverage those partnerships, those platforms. And, there's nothing that a big brokerage can do that we can't from a tech standpoint. And we don't have the overhead or the R&D costs. So I feel strong about that with like our whole ethos of, being more efficient. We recently started our partnership with Augment. And so, the AI
Nice.
aspect of being able to like automate some of these mundane tasks is huge for us. That should cut our hiring down, like, how much in the future. So yeah, we're trying to be really smart. There's a lot out there to be efficient, man. It's never been
Yeah.
a better time, maybe not from a market standpoint, but from like a support and infrastructure standpoint to open a brokerage.
No, I mean, honestly, from the tech perspective, like I remember 10 or so years ago, I think I've been in the industry just about 10 years now. When I was at TQL, like there was just so many less just options for technology, but also just like the network perspective, right? Like you and I and LinkedIn and all the platforms where we can connect with other people and just like have those real conversations. It wasn't something that was so, it wasn't as relevant 10 years ago. And it was a lot harder to find some of that out of the box tech, right? I mean, a lot of it was just built in-house. Coyote was building their own, TQL builds their own, and like everyone would just kind of keep everything in house. But now we're seeing, like the Cargados that are coming out with Mexico cross border and Canada cross border. We're seeing the AI companies that are coming out, the Happy Robots, the Augments, all these different companies that are doing a different focus, but they're specifically for logistics companies. They're not, hey, we focus on healthcare, but we can also bolt on for logistics, right? They are specifically just tech, people who have been in logistics or people who have, seen different aspects of the industry and said, man, we can make this so much better. And that's what they're doing. And yeah, to your point, I mean, it's never been easier to have the technology to start a brokerage. So when you have that tech, what it really comes down to is those both relationships, but also just customer service.
Yeah, that's a big piece. I mean, the one lens we're always trying to look through is like if we're a shipper working with Hoplite, like what's the experience like?
Yeah.
How can we make this like as convenient as possible? They want visibility. They want to know where the freight's at before they have to reach out. Just it goes back to like the basics of what we learned starting off of what a really good brokerage looks like, and it's, can you make it as easy and pain free as possible for your shipper? Can you make it so that they have less
Yeah.
gray hairs? And like that's what we're focused on. But a lot of these platforms and efficiency gains, I mean, that helps. It certainly does. I mean, if you have Augment that can reach out the second something goes off in macro point and ask them to either jump back on or opt back in or start kind of adding the breadcrumbs themselves along the way, so there's no visibility lost. I mean, that would normally, or would have previously required the rep to keep emailing and updating manually, and then they're not spending time booking, so you fall behind on booking, and now you're paying.
Yep.
You're not booking for the right rates because you're falling behind, so now you're losing money, and so it's just like this domino effect. And there's a lot of things to leverage out there now. And honestly, the marketplace is so congested too that
Yeah.
it's not crazy expensive because there's so much competition that you can typically negotiate a pretty good rate. So I think we've done about as good of a job as we could, like building the infrastructure in order to like scale really fast when the time hopefully comes.
Do you think that approach has made you guys like maybe the standout option for both carriers and for shippers to work with you guys, because you are flexible, you can adapt to new technology, but also like you guys aren't just sitting on your hands. You are looking at new tech. You're not waiting for the next wave. You guys are probably every day or every week or every month just saying, hey, how can we improve these processes and how can we improve for the future? I think that's what kind of makes shippers and carriers both want to work with you guys.
I mean, yeah, I'm a little biased for sure, but we're a boutique offering who can do anything the big boys can, but
Yeah.
we're hungry. And the service is on, like, you're not going to find a team that cares more about how a load goes than a company that's growing like that. And we have the industry background from some of the larger players. We know what it looks like. I feel really strongly about what we can offer, and we haven't lost a customer. Like, everyone's very happy with the service, and we get the biggest, and like the thing I'm most proud of is we've had several customers like go out of their way to recommend us to other shippers, and like you can't have a better compliment than that. So I mean, there's so many options out there, man. Like, there are
Yeah.
certainly other brokerages who treat their shippers well and grow off of that from a service standpoint. I think where we stand out is obviously the Mexico niche, that we have an entity down there. We can
Yeah.
provide like good, almost like an advisor type role when it comes to that for companies interested in that. And then, yeah, like I would put our team up against anyone. And I know that's like everyone says that, but everyone on our team has been in the industry for over 10 years, and they've worked at high level brokerages and they've been successful at them. They know what they're doing. That gives a lot of confidence when like Brian and I need to step away. There's
Absolutely.
nothing slows down. Everything's in good hands, and we're going to keep hiring that way. We want to bring in the best because that obviously has its own ROI attached.
So before we get to like kind of wrapping up, I've got some like rapid fire questions as we kind of wrap here. But I want to ask, just kind of one like final question that I've had is, what do you think, if you had to maybe sum it up, like what separates the great freight companies, the great 3PLs that thrive from those that burn out? Like, what do you think that is?
Well, I would definitely say the customer experience. Like I see so many of them as they get larger. Like man, it's very natural when you're a company that size, especially when you bring in like PE to be like, how do we maximize what we're
Yeah.
making? Yeah, of course, it's a company. Like you want to make as much money as you can. I see a lot of companies forget the experience they're giving their partners, though. Certain brokerages. One thing that I hated, and Coyote pushed it a little bit too when they had their app go out. Coyote Go, like push the carriers onto the app, push it onto the app. The carrier has you on the phone asking about a load. They don't want to hear
Right.
it. Well, jump on the app and look at it there. No, I'm on the phone calling you. I want to know about it now. Book me on it. And there's a lot of brokerages that have gone that route and companies that have gone that route where like, push the tech because it'll become more scalable. Well, carriers aren't going to want to work with you anymore if they have to jump through these hoops to just get a load. Customers don't want to feel like the tech or the company is making their job harder. Hey, you now you just have to log into our portal and do everything on there. That's great if that's what they want, but
Right.
they just want to email it over. Well, you better have some sort of automation on your end. If you want to automate it, then have something that's scrubbing your emails and pulling it into your TMS. Like, don't require them to go online to add a tender in. I think some of the
Get
companies
that.
lose their way, and that's why their reputation suffers. That's my opinion. I've seen it a few times, and I have, I think that's the big thing for us as we grow to not lose sight of that. It's really tough to do. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but
Yeah.
that's the thought. Yeah.
So let's get to some rapid fire. If you weren't running Hoplite today, what would Rich be doing?
Coaching. Yeah. If I wasn't in freight, I would have liked to have done something athletically. I'd be
Yeah.
coaching something somewhere.
What's one thing about you that people in the industry may never guess or may
Uh,
never know?
that that's a tough one, man. Would never guess. I have 11 tattoos.
I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, I mean I like them. They're all concealed unless I have my shirt off. But yeah, I just always liked them from a young age.
What's like a favorite city you like to visit, whether that's for work or just to blow off some steam?
A couple off the top of my head, but they're all warm weather cities. I mean, San Diego is my favorite city in the States. Like, I just feel like when I get off the plane there, stress goes away. I miss being out there more often. And then I love Vegas, man. I love Vegas.
I
I'm
love
not
Vegas
someone who
too.
gambles a lot either. I just think the energy there, you're around people that are all on vacation for the most part. So, like, the energy is it's the same thing if you go to a resort. Like, everyone's in a good mood.
Yeah,
Unless you're at the tables, then maybe stay away from the
a little
table.
depressed.
Not so much, yeah. But no, I love going to Vegas, watch a show, have a good meal, sleep in a nice bed. Love Vegas too.
No, I enjoy Vegas for honestly the exact same reasons. I'm not a big gambler. I like to go throw like $50 night one, and then I'm pretty much done. Go people watch, go walk, go have good dinners, and just enjoy the atmosphere. Coffee, energy drinks, or something else to get you through those really long, stressful days.
It's funny. I'm actually a hybrid. I do both. I get up in the morning. I'm preparing for my wedding right now, so I have 2 months before.
Congrats.
Thank you very much. But I'm trying to get in shape, obviously. So first thing I do every day is go straight to the gym. Half a can of energy drink. Shout out Ghost and C4. They've been getting me through some long mornings. And then when I get back, I take a shower and I load up my coffee for second round, which gets me into the mood for starting off my workday.
Black coffee, or what kind of coffee do you drink?
I like creamer. I do. There's like a Chobani, like sweet cream, zero sugar that like is
It's
my
fire.
it's my go-to, man. And
Yeah.
like, indulge. It's sugar free.
Dude, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, sharing your story. I think it's been really fun. We're definitely going to have you back here in a couple months, maybe a year or so, and kind of share some more of the chapters that have been going on with Hoplite, because obviously the book is not yet fully written for you guys. Where can people reach out if they want to learn more or just want to chit chat with you about freight?
Yeah, man. LinkedIn, I'm on there all the time. Rich Krul. But then, shiphoplite.com is our website too. Anyone interested in Mexico would love to help. Anyone who's in a shipper and you're just looking for someone you want to be able to depend on, man. I'd put our team up against anyone, but thanks for having me on, man. Like, this was really fun. Glad we got to finally chat a little bit. I'm sure we can do a lot more of that in the future, but,
Absolutely.
you do a great job setting the conversation. Like,
Thank you.
that was a fun convo. And as you know, we've been trying to get our podcast going just for video content. I learned a bit, man.
Yeah,
It's been
appreciate that.
a pleasure.
I appreciate that, man. And, I appreciate everyone for listening this long, for listening to this podcast with Rich. I think it was a really good one, especially if you're willing to learn a little bit about, kind of the goings on and what other freight founders are doing. Don't forget, we do drop 3 weekly newsletters as well, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, thinkfreight.io. And don't forget to think freight.